Today's guest is actor and community advocate Antonio Di Charity. I've had the pleasure of directing Antonio in two of my films. You're too young to qualify as one of our senior guests, and so you're an honorary senior today. As you are a veteran of your film world, and I remember when John Amadeo, who produced Arrested Development, and was my fellow producer on Discover Me, you were the person that we sort of identified that would probably break out of the pack of 400 actors that we interviewed, and that proved to be true. You've done some amazing work. Orville series was so much fun, right? That was the name of that show.
Yeah. That was
The
Seth MacFarlane's his his version of Star Trek, basically.
Yeah, it really was, and he didn't really try to disguise that, but he came up with something that was totally fresh and original. Didn't you do something with Transformers not too long ago
Yeah,
as
worked
well?
on Bumblebee. Yeah, which
One of my
wasn't the biggest moneymaker, but it got the best critical acclaim and the best response from audiences of any of the recent Transformers. One critic said it had a lot of heart. It's like this
Mhm.
ET for this generation, basically.
Wow, and isn't that what we need right now?
Yeah.
Heart and everything. You have a unique family background. The Charity family, came over here in the 16 or 1700s, 1600s?
1600s, actually.
1600s.
I'm
Yeah.
working on a documentary now. It's called Where Charity Began, talking about the history of my family. So the charity, I was born and raised in Surrey County, Virginia, and the Charity family has been in Surrey County, Virginia since the early 1600s. And we're descendants of at least two of the first documented Africans to have arrived on these shores in August of 1619.
And not as slaves, right?
Yeah, 'cause that's an old question that I hear people debate about. But in 1619, no one came as slaves. One historian said they were enslaved when they were
Hmm.
taken from Africa. They were taken from Africa. They were absolutely brought here against their will. So they were enslaved. But when they arrived on these shores, the system of slavery hadn't been developed yet. It wasn't even legal. So the moment they stepped off of the slave ship onto these shores, they were free people. So the reason I started, well, my daughter inspired me to do this work. So I told her the little I knew about our family history. That is that the charities have been in Surrey, Virginia for over 400 years. There's no record of anyone with the name Charity having ever been enslaved. And that we were possibly descendants of the first Africans who arrived here. And she asked, why isn't this known? This is about 4 years ago now. And I didn't have an answer for her. I said, well,
Mm.
because you and I haven't told anybody. So I began to research this family folklore, this oral history that I'd received, and to see how much of it can be validated. And to my surprise, many local historians, scholars, researchers had already done all the research. So the information was all there already. I just gathered it and put it together for this documentary. And in a nutshell, my family, and so no one with a charity name was ever enslaved. There's no record of it. Um, um, and so my family evaded slavery simply because we were here before it started. And so, yeah, we've been in Surrey County since 1619. And so before, is more than 200 years before the Emancipation Proclamation. My
Well,
family was here all more than 150 years before America was America. Before we became an independent nation, when we were still a British colony, my family was here. So
yeah, my family got here around the late 1800s. So
right, we've been there since. So,
yeah,
so
might be.
I kind of look forward to that peculiar segment of our population who want to tell Black people to go back where they came from. Because I know I've been here longer than than most. I've been
Yeah,
here much longer
yeah.
than the other end.
Uh,
So.
One thing you got to hand to white culture is it's really good at appropriating things, and
Yeah,
it has
yeah,
appropriated all this mandate that is completely delusional,
yeah.
if you will. So Virginia is so much a part of your family history, uh, and of course, just this past week we had the Virginia Supreme Court essentially, uh, allowing the gerrymandering of all those districts following up to SCOTUS's, uh, terrible gutting of the Voting Rights Act. How do you feel about that?
How do I feel about
Yeah, well, give it to me, man.
um, personally, I mean, honestly, I don't expect a whole lot in these times, so nothing surprises me.
I think that's what a lot of, white people don't understand, and we have enough black friends, to realize that you guys, we're just acting like you normally would expect us to act. I'm
Been there,
sorry.
done that, seen it all before.
Yeah.
You give a little, take more. Give a little room, take more, and then the goalposts are forever being moved. Yeah, but I mean, but most simply stated, the idea that in other states,
Mhm.
um, they're proponents of states' rights and the powered people having power to decide in each state what they want to do. Celebrate um, judges, the bench, the courts deciding whether or not gerrymandering is allowed, whether or not this district is allowed. In Virginia, the people voted, the people
Yeah.
decided, and the courts are saying no. I'm like, I thought y'all didn't like that. I'm like, I thought y'all didn't like activist judges. Yeah, I mean, just one more example of the hypocrisy. I thought y'all didn't like judges determining, overruling the will of the people. But the people voted, and the people said, we want this. And the court said no. But in other places, the very same thing is happening, and they're allowed to do it. So a lot of people are still grappling with that. And at the end of the day, the details don't matter. Whereas it's the Virginia Supreme, it's a matter of the Virginia Constitution. The Virginia Constitution has to say blah 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 blah. But it has never been about the details. It's about the spirit of the
Mm.
law, and more importantly, it's about the hearts, minds, and spirits of the people making the laws. And we don't trust them. There's no surprises here. We know they will change the rules, move the goalposts, break the rules at any moment.
As a white guy, for the first time in my 73-year life, I'm seeing, that if I am, liberal in my beliefs, which I've always been, that I might be considered a domestic terrorist, you know? And I'm like, yeah, what? And so for the first time, even, they're even trying to carve out, and divide up their own, base of white power and turn us all against each other. So that indicates to me something really serious, doesn't it? I mean, it means that they are going to try to do an apartheid sort of a rulership, and they need to get all the white people on
Yeah.
board with that. I mean, doesn't that give you some
Yeah.
pause
Yeah.
out there?
Yeah. Again, there is nothing could happen that's so extreme that it would surprise me.
Wow,
Nothing,
nothing.
nothing,
Yeah,
nothing. Not in
literally
today's
not.
and it's I mean, we're looking at these are the last gasps for air of a dying man. You know, they see the country is changing too rapidly for some people.
Mhm.
Well, it's all about keeping the brown people out. That's why this man's in office twice. Not about abortion is a cop out. You know, separation, church and state, gun control, all that stuff. Not even the border per se. Everybody wants rules and laws and trying to find a pathway to. No, we don't want a lot of brown people here. It's about build that wall. And at the end of the day, whatever else he says, no matter how vulgar, how obscene, how ignorant, how unpresidential, if he's trying to get rid of the brown people, white fiscal conservatives will tolerate all kinds of economic calamity. White so-called evangelical Christians will tolerate all kinds of indecency and immorality. Mhm.
Obama drives Trump insane, and he's constantly attacking Obama because Obama represents that era in America where we were turning away from racism. We thought. Instead, the racists really doubled down, and it became the triggering event for everything we're experiencing right now.
Obama drives a lot of them crazy, even still, and he always will. We're talking about people who still mad about OJ. So they
Wow.
never I mean, they can't let it go.
They're
I
so
mean,
mad about the
regardless
Civil War. They're
precisely,
mad about the Civil War that they lost.
precisely,
Yeah.
precisely. I tell people, don't let anybody tell you the South lost the war. They're still fighting it, and in some places they're winning. In some
Yeah.
cities, some neighborhoods, some locations. Yeah,
I think a lot of people who live, like, in liberal areas like California or when I was living in Chicago, were just completely unaware of the kind of, racism that's still been going on even with the Civil Rights Act, of the '60s, you know, and it just was never reported by mainstream news because mainstream news is owned by white billionaires. Simple as that. Um, are you sensing any exhaustion, anger, or discouragement, among Black Americans politically, or are they taking this attitude like, "Yeah, they're just doing what they always do," but, I mean
it's all of the above, all of the above, because black people don't all, I'm sure you understand, we don't all think, feel, or respond the exact same way.
Right,
A lot of us, too many of us, like white Americans, are apathetic. Like the people in charge are gonna do what they do anyway. Not enough Americans, black, white, rich, poor, otherwise,
yeah.
are engaged. And this kind of foolishness makes people even more less likely to engage.
What they used with Virginia was, to say to Black people, "Look, even if you vote, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
We're gonna overturn your vote anyway."
but that's not new. Not so. I'm saying for a lot of people, it's like, okay, so what else? What else is new? Tell me something. Show me something I haven't seen. Tell me something I don't already know. It's not
Mm.
just this one election in Virginia. It happens everywhere all the time. That's a lot of people's attitude. So there's apathy, and there's absolutely disgust and outrage. Particularly, and I noticed, um, generally speaking, and you would expect that more so from older black folk who were there, who knew the
Yeah.
cost.
Well,
We,
and went through great pain and sacrifice during the '60s, to, get these rights, and, now to just see them all just like, "Meh."
yeah, because sometimes I'm like, y'all stop acting like this surprises you. You know what time, the kind of times we're living in. It's pretty good.
Let's talk about DEI for a moment. That the whole Trump administration's mission seems to have been to sweep that away, and I think at just enormous cost of competency. Uh, because if you look at, I mean, really, what they were doing was opening jobs for white people by getting rid of black people. That's all they were really doing. But what the people that got the jobs are not as good at the jobs, and so we're paying more for everything, tax wise, gas wise, food wise, and getting less. We have. I'm sorry to say it. We just basically have a bunch of racist idiots running our our fucking country. That's you know.
And that's one of those conversations, issues with a lot of black people. Not all, but a lot of us would say, yeah. And what else is new?
Hmm.
This is what they do.
Yeah.
And today it's DEI. It seems like only yesterday it was all about CRT and critical race theory, and
Oh
and
yeah.
then it's always going to be something.
It seems like COVID created this uh, new uh, forthrightness about racism.
Mm.
It was like, um, sort of like maybe the death throes we felt of our civilization, and it was like, I'm going to get my racism flag flying all of a sudden.
Mhm.
It became so worse
Yeah.
after COVID, didn't it?
Um.
Or has it always been just so shitty? It's
Yeah.
maybe when I
Well,
noticed.
things have absolutely gotten worse recently. I think it's COVID and it's Trump's first election. It's given emboldened a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's social media, what allows you to say whatever you want to say, and we don't even have to know who you really are. You know?
Yeah.
You can operate in anonymity.
Mhm.
It's a combination of all that stuff, and I think it was all of that was just concentrated during COVID. Um,
We were watching
uh,
Don Lemon, and he was people were crying, about the gutting of the SCOTUS,
yeah, yeah,
gutting the rights. So,
yeah, and it's yeah. I mean, it's hard to get people to know to understand because nobody here can say that they or their mother or father or uncles and aunts or grandparents were beaten or killed or suffered violence just for wanting to vote. You know, that's for us. You know, that's not a reality for white people. You don't have,
yeah.
not now. You have to go back to the American Revolution to say, you know, it's like
Well, actually, you
when we
don't. I mean,
fought.
you can just go back to the beginning of the year with Renee Good and Alex Preddy. I mean, 2 white people shot just for being
Yeah.
out there observing ICE, and, it's terrible the way our Supreme Court, is behaving. I hope there'd be ways for us to balance the courts and get back to, a Supreme Court that's not just beholden to the white supremacists. 'Cause that's what we
Mm,
have. I mean, when they said that, ICE could pick up people off the streets because of the color of their skin, that's over a year ago now, I
an
mean
accent. It's like
they can pick
any
up black
reason.
people on the premise that, "You're from Haiti, I'm taking you in," and put you in prison for 6 months without, being able to get out. I mean, what a horrible thing, and now, uh, you know, uh, for the first time, I think because of Alex Prudy and Renee Good, a lot of white people are waking up to the fact that they're coming for us too. And if we have liberal beliefs, if we believe that all of us are created equal and deserve rights, they're coming for you. And that's the first time that I've ever felt like that
Yeah,
as a white American. I mean, I have been swimming in white privilege my entire life without and just like a fish in water, not even
yeah.
seeing, how did I build skyscrapers and make movies? A lot of that's because I'm a good white person salesman. I can communicate.
Yeah. I I must be nice. I've had too many encounters with law enforcement to be surprised by any of this stuff. I know
Wow.
anytime I see someone in uniform with a badge and a gun, proceed with caution. You
Yeah,
could die. That's
escalate.
just a
They're
simple
looking
a
for
simple
any little excuse to escalate, and they'll even make one up
yeah.
if there isn't one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must be just a horrible feeling, and I don't feel that way yet, so I can't. I truly can't relate. I can be sympathetic though, and I can
Well,
try to raise my voice and try to help my fellow black citizens because I love you guys. I really do.
I appreciate that. So
I traveled to Europe once. I was in Europe for a couple of weeks, and there's not as many black people in Europe, and it was the first time it was like in the '90s. I was like, man, I just really miss seeing black faces and talk because you're such beautiful people, and we love the uh, the whole black movement, and we hope that it all is going to right itself at some point here. But we're in a dark era. There's no question. But you want to sum up for me? Where our talk
yeah,
today? Yeah.
yeah. Just so, on your last point, I think it's a good place to sum it up. Actually, your last point about it must feel terrible, and sometimes it does. It really it's, it gets it's real burdensome. You know,
Yeah, the
having to
despair, the depression of it
keep
all.
keep your guards up and feeling you have to behave in a certain way around law enforcement, be careful, and not, just any a security guard, anybody with a gun, any white man with a gun anywhere. You know, um, but it's not. I don't think most black people do walk around this perpetual state of fear or depression and misery. I don't think that's the case at all. No, it's not the case with me. We still have hope. There's always hope.
Yeah.
And we learn how to navigate the system. Most of us. Most of us. Some of us um, don't. But most of us learn how to stay alive. Um, but we have hope. And for me and a lot of black people, that is still rooted in our faith. Always has been. Always has been. And I pray that that never changes. That we don't move so far in any direction, that we move away from the faith that has brought us this far. It is trusting in God, believing that there's going to be a better day. And as bad as things are, it's better than it was yesterday, better than it was the day before. In a Chris Rock joke, some time ago, in the 40s and 50s, that's when things were good. Things were better then, better than they were in the 30s, better than they were in the 20s. So we see change. We see a lot of good happening in spite of all this other nonsense. This too shall pass.
Yeah. I know you're a very religious person, and uh, the evangelical Christianity, there's a lot of talk these
Ooh,
days
oh,
that
yeah.
it's not.
Let me breathe. Give me a moment. Let
Oh,
me
sorry.
calm down. You say
Yeah.
you say those words, and I get let me gather myself, because
Okay.
all right.
Yeah. There's a lot of there's a lot of talk that evangelicals have completely moved away from the teachings of Jesus, and that calling it Christianity is almost a misnomer at this point, because they're not following any of the teachings of Christ. And I'm not a religious person, but I've always admired Jesus as a teacher and the principles. And it's just appalling to see so many of these, religious guys on the right using religion as a weapon and not what it was meant to be, which was meant to bring us all together in a space of love. So, what are your thoughts?
You sure you want my thoughts?
Oh, I do. Yeah. Well,
um, uh, yeah, I'm be real plain spoken about it. There's a scripture that says, what do we do with judging the world? Leave the world to itself. We should judge those of the household of faith. And so my harshest criticism is for the evangelicals, because they profess to be a part of the body of Christ. They profess to be disciples of Jesus Christ. But in truth, this same crowd has always been a bunch of racists masquerading as disciples of Christ. I said it unapologetically, unashamedly, unabashedly. The evangelical crowd is now and has always been a bunch of racists, a bunch of haters, a bunch of hypocrites. Nothing new here. It's just that Donald Trump and his policies and his attitudes and his words and actions make them look all the more hypocritical.
so it's always been.
That's all. That's it. They've always been that.
Yeah, I guess I had
It's
the
almost-
misimpression that somehow through Russian brainwashing or something like that, that they were transformed. No, they've always been this way. Okay. Thank you.
They've always, I mean, to see, high noon on Sunday, popular time for lynching. And folks would leave church and go to a lynching. You know, it's nothing new. White so-called Christians, Bible believers have never had a whole lot of conflict with the idea of being Christian and being slave owners, of being Christians and being liars and thieves and murderers, of being Christians and being rapists, of being Christians and man stealers. This is the history of white Christianity here in America and around the world. Lying, stealing, robbing is nothing new. Nothing new. Murdering, lynching, raping. Nothing new. It isn't. You know,
The first
whether
time
there
we
were
had it in the White House, yeah.
yeah,
That
whether they were Catholic, Protestant, I don't divide them up.
yeah.
I'm dealing with white people who profess to be Christian, but practice something totally unlike Christianity, something totally unlike Christ, who want us to accept, to tolerate what they themselves would never accept or tolerate. They would never tell their children to turn the other cheek to the mess that we've had to turn our other cheek to. They don't teach their children to accept the kind of violence, the kind of hatred, the kind of mistreatment, to overlook the kind of insensitivity, the kind of vulgar attacks verbally that they tell us time and time again to overlook, or, or, or they expect us to overlook them overlooking it. You understand?
It's a double
Um,
think, yeah, it's a double think. Mhm.
no, they've always been liars. They've always been hateful. Always. Always. Unashamedly, unabashedly, unapologetically, unrepentantly. I'm telling you, the white Christian crowd, they're the worst.
Mm.
They are, and always have been because of the hypocrisy. Most. There are some exceptions, but I am saying and believe sincerely that the exceptions aren't just that. The exceptions. It's not like they're mostly good people, but there are a few bad apples. No, they're mostly a bunch of bad apples.
Mm.
They're mostly more concerned with whiteness than Christ likeness. They've always cared more about being white and maintaining privilege than
Christ
they
was
have.
Christ
uh,
wasn't a white guy to start with, but okay, yeah,
Even that, try telling them that.
yeah,
Try getting them to admit. Try it.
yeah,
Try getting them to admit that and take the pictures of white Jesus down. See
no,
how far you get with that.
not gonna happen, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's just
white
it's they,
Santa, white
uh,
everybody.
yeah. So we know what racist indoctrination has done to black people. You know, but unfortunately for some of us, over time, it has in the past and even now. Sometimes it creates a fear or an inferiority complex. 400 years of being told you're nothing,
Yeah, oh, the
but we don't take into account the harm that it does white people to grow up with this nonsensical idea that you're better than other people. The intellectual cousin to black inferiority is white supremacy. Some more nonsense.
mm,
And for white people who buy into it, you don't even know how it harms you. You don't know that it's getting in the way of what ought to be a real relationship with a real and living God, one of love. And that this white supremacy thing gets in the way of that. It's costing you more than you even know, and they literally don't know. It's that deep.
yeah.
This peculiar social malignancy called white supremacy it's a beast, man, and it won't die easy.
Coolest tech ever is offering a lot of products that are about the anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And in order to have health in your later years, you have to do things so that you reduce the inflammation in your body. Everybody needs to do that, no matter your age, because inflammation is the first sign of illness. So when you can reduce inflammation, you're just better off. So all the products over there are things that we use to help. And I know Wowza uses a Blue Shield. She's got one in her house, and I know she's got a great water filter because it's important to make sure that you are hydrating with healthy water. All the basic things, we need to make sure that our homes are environmentally safe now.
We're not gonna figure it out today here, are we, Antonio?
Yeah.
It's just
Nah, nah, nah.
but I guess just, a black guy and a white guy just talking like we're talking, it makes me feel good that we're at least communicating because there's so many misunderstandings that we have through our lack of communication. I built Oprah Winfrey's television studios, and, she briefly, uh, had been at the high school that I had been at. She was a bussed-in student,
Mm.
and I just remember when we were taking our photo op after I would finished the studios and, I was just chatting with her, and I said, "Hey, I learned through some research you went to Nicolet High School." She said, "I don't wanna talk about that.
Uh,
I do not wanna talk about that."
Yeah.
I was a student who picked up her books after they got knocked out of her arms. I never got to share that story with her,
Yeah.
but, that must have been typical for her. She must have just been walking around the hallways. I mean, the fact that I ran into her in a big school and picked up her books,
Yeah.
it was probably happening like 10 fucking times a day. Yeah. I used to,
Yeah.
you
That
know,
pain is real for a lot of people, man. That trauma is real for a
yeah,
lot of people, a lot of us.
yeah. Um, so no easy answers. Um, just holding a space of love, and if we could really get back to the true Christian values, it would really be tremendous, wouldn't it? I mean, what kind of an awakening would that be?
That's, if we do unto others as you would have others do unto you. It can't get any simpler, man.
Yeah,
It can't.
love thy
Treat,
neighbor. Yeah,
I mean, treat people the way you would want them to treat you.
yeah,
It really encompasses everything. It really is that simple. What do you do in any situation? Well, if I were in their position, what would I want? How would I want to be treated, perceived, received?
yeah. Any other thoughts before we go?
Another thing I want to note about what Black people are thinking now, some of the conversations we're having that maybe the rest of the world isn't privy to as much. One of those conversations is our disappointment with the Democrat Party.
Yes.
And that's an old one and it's not new. I get glimpses of it on television every now and then. But there are a lot of Black people who just think this party is not fighting hard enough for us, that they're tolerating too much, and they're not being nearly as oppositional as we would hope they would be. Um, and my opinion and some others is that because by and large, we have an expression in the Black community, when America gets the cold, Black people get the flu. It's
Mm,
like, so whatever's happening and going wrong adversely affects us even more.
mm.
And I remember after Hurricane Katrina, Jesse Jackson said, America has a high tolerance for Black suffering. And part of the reason that our allies, our elected officials that we support don't fight as hard as we would hope that they would, as we believe they should, is because things don't impact them the same way. And they're not as vociferous or as energetic. They don't have the kind of vigor and vim that we would expect them to have when speaking on our behalf, fighting for our rights, and sometimes literally fighting for our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of the shame I feel as a white person. The Democratic Party is a huge disappointment to me. I registered as an independent this next election cycle, which means I won't be able to vote in the California primaries. But I had to make some statement, and every time I get called for a donation by the Democrats, I'm like, "Hey, look, I gave you thousands of dollars to do your job. Now just do your fucking job, and you might see some donations from me again." I mean, it's disgusting. It's disgusting because they're supposed to be the countermeasure. And it's just like they're doing a rope-a-dope, like to borrow Muhammad Ali's fighting technique. Well, that doesn't cut it. Doesn't cut it, and I I'm just a regular dude who's, trying to make movies. And I'm supposed to be the person out here, talking about these things. It's ridiculous. It's just it's fucking ridiculous, And I'm not I'm writing a science fiction. I think I've talked to you a little bit over the internet called Mar-a-Lago Prison, where we see a Democrat in Biden who's different than the Biden of this universe. This is a Biden who arrests Trump and puts him in jail. And, I love the story, because that's how he had all those rights SCOTUS gave to Trump. He had them first, and he comes on all pious like, I'm not going to use these powers that SCOTUS has given me. He could have balanced the Supreme Court with that power in those few months that he had, but he basically was just leave me and my family alone, give us some immunity, and I'll go away. It was sad. And I wrote that whole story a year before the actual elections, and I really thought Biden was going to be more of a fighter. So the book
Mhm.
took a complete rewrite, where I basically, Trump's of course a worse uh, racist, but I think there was a lot of racism in Biden. I think that the way he treated Kamala Harris, assigning her to the border without giving her real authority. I mean, she became responsible for all that flood of immigration that was going on, was totally detrimental. And then staying in the elections when he was clearly senile, as long as he did. And then I'm going to turn it over to you now, Kamala, where you only have 180 days.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
what the fuck? That was terrible. So yeah, I'm totally in sync with you on the Democratic thing, man. Totally in sync with you. Get your act together, Democrats. We're watching you. you know, and we're not going to be contributing unless you start. We want to see more Mondami kind of Democrats. Is what it comes down to. I mean, look what he's done in just a short amount of time. Isn't that incredible? All it
It
took
is
was not
hard to
being
believe.
not kissing ass of the racists and the billionaires. That's all it took. Uh, and more of that, please. More Bernies, more AOCs, and please, we just need better leaders in the Senate and the Congress. I'm not gonna. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm preaching to the choir here, of course, but yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that up, Antonio. I mean, the betrayal that you must feel is 10 times what I feel, though. I mean, I'm just a guy that gave some money and I'm not seeing any fucking results. You're seeing the complete, uh, abdication of their own responsibility for being the guardrails. It's like, wow.
Again, no surprise. Um,
Oh.
I, I became an independent in 1992.
Well, I finally joined you.
Yeah, not 94. I think after it was so Clinton was elected in 92, but it was halfway through his election. I was like, oh, he's not doing the stuff he said he would do. I
Hmm.
can go into details about it, but he didn't
Oh,
do this. And he didn't. I can't trust this guy.
he was basically a Republican policy kind of a guy.
Yeah,
He's
so I went independent
all.
then. I mean, with that said, I never have, and probably well, I can't say who knows what the future holds. Never voted for a Republican presidential candidate. I have voted for some Democratic presidential candidates. But in local and state elections, I voted both ways, depending on the issues and who the people were. Um,
Well,
and admittedly, there have been very few Republicans who, very few, admittedly, it's not like it's not 50-50. I don't pretend that it is, but there have been some Republicans I've supported in local and statewide elections. But I'm an independent, and so whereas I am disappointed, I'm not surprised. It's what I expect from the Democrats. So it's what they 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 they've been weak for a while.
well, and I think they're, if you look at, the billionaires who, try to get they try to make our politics really just something to keep us preoccupied while they do all their terrible shit. They are now trying to buy as many Democrats as they possibly can. I mean, they're out there actively lobbying to, like, hey, I'm going to give you your campaign money. You don't have to be spending all this time raising money. It's so much work, just let me support you. We'll, you'll get a few good things done. I don't know how they're selling it, but I voted for Kirsten Cinema, and to
Mm.
see her, do her little thumbs down on the minimum wage being raised. I mean, to have my vote be part of contributing to the stoppage of improving minimum wage. I'm still mad about that one. And she really fooled me. I mean, as a campaigner, she seemed like a true Democratic liberal and was going to do a good job. But she turned out to be, along with Joe Manchin, the undoing of so many of our good things that it was
West Virginia. Oh, have
quite
mercy.
frustrating.
Now, where's the boss?
Yeah, Elizabeth, come on and say hello.
Talk to the people in charge around
The
there.
general.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing okay. You know, some of
Good.
the stuff that I heard you guys talking about, I'm like had to run out of the room, and
Yeah.
it's just hard on the body to even have to
Yeah,
to
I get it.
yeah.
And just want to
Thank
say
you
hi
so
to the
much for
boss.
being here.
And yeah, no, thanks for the invitation. Thanks for thinking of me, Ken. It's cool.
You betcha. Yeah. You're one of my favorite people, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's good.